He told everyone I was just a housewife at the reunion. Next week, I rejected his firm's merger proposal as the mysterious so he'd been desperately trying to meet for months. 10 years ago I was the woman everyone overlooked. Now I was the CEO every boardroom feared. And it all started with 6 words spoken carelessly at a high school reunion. Sarah? Oh, she's just a housewife. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Let's dive in. The reunion hall buzzed with the familiar hum of nostalgia and forced small talk. Soft jazz played in the background, a soundtrack to a scene I'd soon transform into my personal turning point. I stood near the refreshment table, my simple black dress a stark contrast to the flashy cocktail numbers surrounding me. My hair, pulled back in a neat ponytail, screamed suburban conformity. But beneath the carefully crafted exterior, a storm was brewing. Michael Roberts, my target, held court near the far wall, surrounded by a cluster of former classmates who hung on his every word. He'd always been that guy. Charismatic, successful, loud. The type who believed success was measured by the volume of his voice and the breadth of his professional conquests. I watched him calculating. Each laugh, each boastful story was a thread I was mentally weaving into a tapestry of revenge. Sarah Thompson, his voice cut through the room like a knife. Last I heard, she settled into the perfect housewife role. The words dripped with condescension. A ripple of polite chuckles followed, the kind of laugh that's more about social alignment than genuine humor. I'd heard worse. Far worse. But this moment, this casual dismissal, would become the catalyst. My journey hadn't been conventional. While others climbed corporate ladders, I'd been building something different. Quietly. Strategically. A network that stretched across industries. A business empire constructed in stolen moments between school runs and family dinners. The world saw a housewife. I saw a CEO in waiting. Michael didn't know about the tech startup I'd quietly nurtured. Didn't know about the venture capital funds I'd strategically invested in. Didn't know that the modest suburban home he imagined was just a carefully maintained facade. My phone buzzed. A message from my COO. Another detail Michael would never suspect. Our latest acquisition was complete. Another piece of a complex chess game I'd been playing for years. The reunion continued around me. Old classmates shared stories, rekindled connections, compared life achievements. But I was already elsewhere. My mind was mapping out the next phase of my plan, the intricate process of dismantling Michael's professional ego. He represented everything I'd fought against. The systemic underestimation of women who choose different paths. The assumption that a woman's worth is defined by her visibility in traditional corporate structures. I would become his professional nightmare, a ghost he couldn't predict or control. As the evening progressed, I maintained my carefully crafted persona. Soft smile. Polite nods. The perfect picture of domestic contentment. But behind my eyes, a strategic mind was always working, always planning. Michael approached me near the end of the night, probably feeling magnanimous after his earlier comments. "Sarah, you're looking well," he said, his tone patronizing. "Still keeping busy at home?" I met his gaze. Calm. Collected. "Absolutely," I replied, my voice smooth as silk. "Always something to do. If he only knew. The next week would change everything. The merger proposal would be my first move, a chess piece positioned precisely to upend his entire world. Michael's firm had been desperately seeking a mysterious CEO, a powerful entity that had been just beyond their reach. They would soon discover that the housewife they'd dismissed was about to become their greatest professional challenge. As I drove home that night, the suburban streets silent around me, I allowed myself a small smile. Revenge, I'd learned, was not about loud explosions or dramatic confrontations. It was about precision. Strategy. The kind of calculated move that would make Michael, and everyone who'd ever underestimated me, realize their fundamental mistake. 10 years of preparation were about to pay off. And it would be beautiful. My home office was nothing like what Michael, or anyone from the reunion, would expect. Behind the facade of suburban tranquility lay a command center that would make most tech startups look amateur. 3 massive monitors lined the wall, each displaying real-time global market data. Trading algorithms I'd personally developed ran silently in the background, generating revenue streams that most investment banks would envy. This was Quantum Horizon Technologies. My creation, my weapon. I pulled up the files on Michael's firm. Not just surface-level information but deep, granular data that revealed every weakness, every potential pressure point. My network of information ran deep. A web of connections cultivated over years of strategic relationship building. The journey hadn't been accidental. After my first child was born, I'd watched the world try to reduce me to nothing more than a mother. But motherhood had been my greatest strategic advantage. While others saw interrupted careers, I saw an opportunity to rebuild from scratch. Late nights weren't spent on mindless television. They were education sessions, online courses in advanced computer science, blockchain technology, venture capital strategies. My children's nap times became coding sessions. School pickups were scheduled around international conference calls. My first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. An algorithm I developed to optimize family scheduling morphed into a revolutionary supply chain management system. The first investor who saw its potential wrote a check that changed everything. But I kept it quiet. Strategic silence was my greatest weapon. Quantum Horizon wasn't just a tech company. It was a carefully constructed instrument of precision. We didn't just develop technology. We anticipated market needs before they became apparent. Our predictive AI models were years ahead of competitors, quietly revolutionizing entire industries. I recalled the early days. My husband, supportive but confused, would find me surrounded by technical manuals and complex mathematical models. Another hobby, he'd ask. If he only knew that these hobbies were constructing an empire. The phone rang. So Elena, a brilliant mind I'd recruited from MIT. The European expansion is ready, she said. No pleasantries. No small talk. We communicated in the language of strategy and execution. Proceed, I responded. 2 words that would trigger a cascade of economic movements worth billions. My success wasn't about luck. It was about seeing the invisible connections others missed. While traditional corporate structures saw boundaries, I saw opportunities. Each limitation placed on me, as a woman, as a mother, as a housewife, became a strategic advantage. The tech industry loved its prodigy stories. Young men fresh out of Stanford or MIT, changing the world from a garage. My story would be different. I'd change the world from a suburban kitchen between making lunches and helping with homework. My children knew parts of my world. My daughter, now 12, was already showing signs of the same strategic thinking. Mom, she'd say, analyzing her school social dynamics, it's all about understanding the underlying system. She was learning early what took me years to understand. The merger proposal to Michael's firm wasn't just a business move. It was a statement. A declaration that the systems of power were changing. That invisible networks were more powerful than visible hierarchies. I pulled up the latest financial projections. Quantum Horizon's growth was exponential but always calculated. No wild risks. Every move precisely measured. Our AI models predicted market shifts with an accuracy that bordered on prescience. The wall of monitors shifted. Global market data, our current projects, predictive models. A symphony of information that told a story far more complex than any reunion small talk could capture. My phone buzzed. Another acquisition target identified. Another opportunity to reshape an industry. The world saw a housewife. They would soon see a force of technological and economic transformation. Michael and his colleagues believed they understood power. They understood nothing. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across my meticulously organized office, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about rewriting the narrative of what's possible. The next move was already in motion. And no one, absolutely no one, saw it coming. Revenge is an art form. And like any masterpiece, it requires meticulous preparation. I spent the next 3 days in near total isolation. My team knew better than to interrupt. The children were with their father for a carefully planned extended weekend. My office transformed into a war room, every digital and physical resource dedicated to dismantling Michael Roberts. His firm, Roberts Global Enterprises, wasn't just another target. It was a complex ecosystem I needed to understand at a cellular level. I pulled every thread of information. Public records, financial statements, leaked internal communications, social media traces, professional networks. Most would see a stack of documents. I saw a living, breathing organism with vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. Michael's professional reputation was built on aggressive mergers and strategic acquisitions. But every aggressive strategy leaves scars. Every conquest creates enemies. My job was to find those fracture points. I discovered his firm was leveraging a significant loan from a consortium of international banks. The terms were complex with strict performance metrics. One strategic disruption could trigger massive financial penalties. His recent acquisition of a mid-sized tech firm in Southeast Asia was particularly interesting. The integration was messy. Cultural misalignments. Technological incompatibilities. A pressure point waiting to be pressed. Elena entered with an encrypted tablet. The deep dive report on Roberts Global, she said. No greeting. No small talk. We communicated in the language of pure strategy. The report was a masterpiece of investigative intelligence. Not just numbers and facts, but the invisible connections that truly define a corporate ecosystem. Michael's key executives. Their personal motivations. Their individual weaknesses. One name stood out. David Chin, his chief technology officer. Recent divorce. Significant financial strain. Professional reputation recently questioned after a failed internal project. Target identified, I muttered. My approach wouldn't be a frontal assault. That was for amateurs. This would be surgical. A precision strike that would dismantle everything Michael believed he had built. Quantum Horizons AI models began running complex simulations. Thousands of potential scenarios, each calculated with microscopic precision. We weren't just planning a merger rejection. We were orchestrating a complete professional deconstruction. The merger proposal we'd draft wouldn't just be a business document. It would be a psychological weapon. I thought back to that reunion. Those 6 dismissive words. She's just a housewife. Each memory fueled my strategy but never clouded my judgment. Emotion was a tool to be wielded, not a force that could control me. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. Saw your Bloomberg interview clip. You were awesome, Mom. A rare smile crossed my face. He was learning. Understanding that power isn't announced, it's demonstrated. The next 48 hours would be crucial. Every digital trace needed to be perfect. Every communication calculated. We would become a ghost in Michael's corporate machinery. I pulled up the preliminary merger proposal draft. It wasn't just a document. It was a trap meticulously designed. Each clause a potential trigger. Each page a psychological manipulation. The beauty of true revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation. Making someone understand deeply and profoundly the magnitude of their miscalculation. Michael thought he knew the business world. He had no idea what was coming. Our AI had identified 17 potential intervention points in Roberts Global's current portfolio. 17 opportunities to apply strategic pressure. Not all would be used, but each represented a potential weapon. David Chin would be our first point of contact. Not directly. Through carefully constructed intermediaries. A whisper here. Suggestion there. Planting seeds of doubt about the firm's current direction. The merger proposal was more than a business document. It was a narrative. A story of potential that would simultaneously attract and repel. Designed to create maximum psychological tension. As midnight approached, I reviewed the final preparations. Each detail checked and rechecked. In the world of high-stakes corporate strategy, there are no second chances. Michael Roberts believed he understood power. He was about to receive a masterclass in true strategic transformation. The first move was ready, and it would change everything. The merger proposal arrived like a phantom, silent, precise, impossibly perfect. Roberts Global's executive team received the document through channels so discreet they seemed to materialize out of thin air. No digital fingerprints. No traceable origin. Just pure strategic communication that would make intelligence agencies proud. I watched the initial reactions through a carefully constructed network of digital surveillance. Not hacking, that was too crude. This was strategic observation, each movement tracked with surgical precision. Michael's first response was typical. Curiosity mixed with professional arrogance. The mysterious CEO behind the proposal had crafted something unprecedented. A merger document that was simultaneously attractive and challenging. Our AI had analyzed thousands of previous merger proposals, identifying exactly what would trigger Michael's competitive instincts. The document wasn't just a business proposition. It was a psychological puzzle designed to consume his every waking moment. Key details were strategically obscured. Enough information to tantalize, not enough to fully comprehend. Each page was a breadcrumb leading to a deeper mystery. David Chin, the CTO I'd identified earlier, was the first to truly dig deeper. His recent professional vulnerabilities made him the perfect entry point. A series of anonymous communications, each perfectly crafted to align with his current professional frustrations, began to circulate. Whispers about innovation. Hints of technological breakthroughs. Subtle suggestions that Roberts Global was falling behind the cutting edge. Elena approached me, a rare look of admiration crossing her face. "It's working," she said. Not a question. A statement of fact. The merger proposal was more than a document. It was a narrative weapon. Each paragraph carefully constructed to create maximum psychological tension. Potential technological synergies that were just beyond comprehension. Financial projections that defied traditional analysis. Michael's team began internal debates. Late-night strategy sessions. Heated discussions about the mysterious proposal's potential. They were doing exactly what we wanted. Consuming themselves with speculation. My children would be proud. This was strategy as an art form. The first meeting request came exactly 72 hours after the proposal's delivery. Predictable. Exactly as we had calculated. Michael would want to meet the mysterious CEO, but we would control every aspect of that interaction. A virtual meeting was proposed. Encrypted channels. Anonymous communication platforms. Each layer of communication a carefully constructed illusion. I prepared myself. Not just professionally but psychologically. This wasn't just a business meeting. This was the first act of a carefully orchestrated revenge. The virtual meeting room was a masterpiece of technological manipulation. Our AI had constructed a digital environment that would reveal nothing, yet suggest everything. Background subtly shifting. Voice modulated to remove any identifying characteristics. "Welcome," I began, my voice a perfect blend of professional confidence and strategic mystery. Michael's initial approach was aggressive. Typical. He believed he could dominate any conversation, break down any barrier. He had no idea he was walking into a trap decades in the making. "Your proposal is unconventional," he started, trying to maintain control. I let a calculated pause hang in the air. Silence can be more powerful than words. "Unconventional times require unconventional strategies," I responded. Each word measured. Each syllable a potential weapon. Our AI was running multiple communication analyses simultaneously. Tracking micro-expressions. Analyzing vocal patterns. Building a comprehensive psychological profile with each passing second. David Chin was copied on the communication. Another strategic move. His growing frustration with the current corporate structure would be our secondary infiltration point. The meeting continued. No concrete decisions. No clear resolutions. But something far more important was happening. We were planting seeds of doubt. Creating hairline fractures in Michael's professional confidence. As the virtual meeting concluded, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. This was more than revenge. This was a systematic deconstruction of everything Michael believed about power, success, and professional identity. The first move was complete. And Michael Roberts had no idea what was truly coming. The boardroom at Roberts Global was a temple of corporate masculinity. Mahogany tables. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Artwork strategically chosen to communicate power. Michael sat at the head of the table, the merger proposal spread before him. His team watched, waiting. This was more than a meeting. This was a performance. I was everywhere and nowhere. Our encrypted communication channels were prepared. Every digital pathway carefully constructed. The rejection would be a surgical strike. David Chin sat slightly apart from the others. The seeds we'd planted were germinating. Subtle doubts. Professional frustrations. He was our unintentional ally. "The proposal is unprecedented," Michael began, his voice carrying that familiar tone of condescension. "Unconventional. Challenging." I knew every word. Every potential response had been modeled thousands of times by our AI. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a precise demolition. The first blow would be financial. Our analysis had identified a critical weakness in their current loan structure. One strategic rejection would trigger a cascade of financial complications. Preliminary analysis suggests significant technological synergies, Michael continued. But the details remain ambiguous. Ambiguity was our weapon. We had constructed the proposal to be simultaneously attractive and impossible to fully comprehend. Elena was monitoring everything. Real-time analytics flowing through our secure channels. Every micro-expression. Every vocal modulation. We were dissecting their psychology in real time. The moment approached. Precision was everything. I propose we move forward with. Michael never finished the sentence. Our rejection arrived. Not as a simple no, but as a comprehensive deconstruction of their entire strategic positioning. The digital document was a masterpiece of strategic communication. Each paragraph a calculated strike. Financial projections that exposed hidden vulnerabilities. Technological assessments that questioned their fundamental approach to innovation. David Chen's reaction was the first tell. A subtle shift. A moment of recognition that something fundamental had changed. Michael's face transformed. Confusion first. Then anger. Then a dawning realization that something was fundamentally different. "Who are you?" he muttered. A question that would consume him. The rejection wasn't just about stopping a merger. It was about demonstrating a level of strategic sophistication that would haunt Michael's professional nightmares. Our AI had identified 17 potential pressure points in their current portfolio. The rejection document expertly highlighted 3. Just enough to create maximum psychological tension. The International Banking Consortium monitoring their loan would receive a copy. Subtly. Strategically. Each word a potential trigger for financial reevaluation. Michael's team began their internal discussions. Heated. Confused. Exactly as we had designed. David Chen was the first to speak. "We need to understand more about this proposal's origin." Exactly what we wanted. The rejection wasn't a closed door. It was an invitation to a deeper, more complex game. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. "Mom, your stock is up 7% today." She was learning to read the financial markets, understanding that power is both strategic and numerical. Elena entered my office. No words needed. Her expression said everything. Phase 1 was complete. The corporate world Michael knew was about to fundamentally change. He thought he understood power. He understood nothing. The rejection would circulate through professional networks. Each reading would reveal new layers of strategic complexity. A document that was both a weapon and a warning. My reflection in the office window showed something different. Not just a woman. Not just a mother. But a strategic force that would reshape entire industries. The reunion felt like a lifetime ago. Just a housewife, they had said. Now they would learn the true meaning of underestimation. Michael Roberts was about to experience a professional deconstruction unlike anything in corporate history. And we were just getting started. The fallout was instantaneous. Within 48 hours, Roberts Global's stock began to tremble. Not collapse. Tremble. A subtle vibration that spoke of something far more dangerous than a simple market correction. Michael's response was predictable. Aggressive. Desperate. Investigative teams were deployed. The most expensive corporate intelligence firms were brought in to uncover the origin of the mysterious merger proposal. They would find nothing. We ensured that. Our digital footprint was a ghost. Perfectly constructed. Deliberately elusive. David Chen became our primary point of vulnerability. The whispers we'd carefully planted began to grow. Rumors about technological stagnation. Questions about the firm's innovative capacity. I watched through our network of digital surveillance. Each movement calculated. Each response anticipated. Elena updated me continuously. Not with reports. With precision-crafted summaries that captured the essence of the unfolding strategy. "Chen's looking externally," she said during our next briefing. No additional context needed. We communicated in the language of pure strategy. The pressure points we'd identified were now active. Like precisely placed acupuncture needles in the corporate body of Roberts Global. Michael's initial confidence began to crack. Board meetings became war rooms. Defensive strategies replaced offensive moves. Exactly as we had designed. Our AI models ran continuous simulations. Thousands of potential scenarios calculated with mathematical precision. We weren't just responding. We were orchestrating. The International Banking Consortium monitoring their loan began to ask questions. Subtle inquiries. Carefully worded communications that suggested deeper concerns about the firm's stability. My children would be proud. This was strategy as an art form. A leaked internal communication found its way to key industry publications. Not through traditional channels. Through a network so complex it would take years to trace. The communication suggested internal discord. Technological limitations. Strategic misalignments. Michael's attempts to counteract the narrative only added fuel to the fire. Each press release. Each public statement. Each defensive maneuver created more questions than answers. David Chin was becoming increasingly isolated within the organization. The seeds of doubt we'd planted were taking root. I thought back to the reunion. Those 6 dismissive words. She's just a housewife. Each memory fueled my strategy but never clouded my judgment. Quantum Horizon's predictive models showed multiple potential outcomes. We weren't just playing chess. We were playing 3-dimensional chess where the board itself was constantly changing. An anonymous white paper began circulating in tech innovation circles. Brilliant. Challenging. Subtly highlighting the technological gaps in Roberts Global's current approach. No direct connection could be traced. But its impact was devastating. Venture capital firms began to pull back. Not dramatically, subtly. The kind of pullback that creates maximum psychological pressure. Michael's network of professional contacts started to change. Subtle shifts. Conversations becoming more guarded. Professional relationships becoming more transactional. We weren't just attacking a company. We were dismantling an entire professional ecosystem. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. Mom, your moves are incredible. He was learning. Understanding that true power is never announced. It's demonstrated. The financial markets continued their subtle dance. Roberts Global's stock didn't crash. It eroded. Slowly. Persistently. The kind of erosion that creates long-term structural damage. David Chin would be the first to break. Not through direct confrontation. Through a carefully constructed network of professional opportunities that would draw him away. Each move was a brushstroke. Each strategy a part of a larger masterpiece. Michael Roberts believed he understood the corporate world. He was about to receive a masterclass in true strategic transformation. The escalation was perfect. Precise. Unstoppable. And we were just getting started. The annual Tech Innovation Summit was Michael's last hope. A global conference where industry leaders showcase their strategic vision. Where reputations are built or destroyed in a single presentation. And where I would deliver the final blow. I arrived wearing a simple black blazer. No flashy accessories. No desperate attempts to command attention. True power doesn't announce itself. It simply exists. Michael didn't know I was there. Not yet. The conference hall buzzed with anticipation. Roberts Global was scheduled to present their revolutionary new strategic vision. A desperate attempt to recover from the systematic dismantling we'd engineered. David Chin would deliver the keynote. Our most strategically planted piece was about to move into its final position. As Michael's team took the stage, I watched from the back of the hall. Every detail of their body language. Every nuance of their presentation. Our AI had analyzed thousands of similar presentations. We knew exactly what was coming. David Chin began speaking. His slides were a masterpiece of corporate confusion. Buzzwords without substance. Strategic language that said everything and nothing. I caught Elena's eye across the room. A subtle nod. Everything was proceeding exactly as we had planned. The first crack appeared 15 minutes into the presentation. A subtle hesitation. A moment of uncertainty that would grow into a chasm. Michael watched from the side of the stage, his composure fracturing with each passing moment. Then I stepped forward. The room went silent. Quantum Horizon, I said. My voice carried across the conference hall. No microphone needed. Every head turned. Michael's face transformed. Recognition. But fear. The reunion felt like a lifetime ago. Just a housewife, they had said. I walked to the stage. Each step calculated. Each movement precise. Ladies and gentlemen, I continued, what you've just witnessed is the result of systemic professional incompetence. The conference hall became a battlefield. And I was about to deliver the final strike. I connected my device to the main presentation screen. Suddenly, the room filled with a comprehensive analysis of Roberts Global's fundamental failures. Not an attack. A surgical deconstruction. Financial projections. Technological limitations. Strategic missteps. Michael tried to interrupt. But this was no longer his stage. 10 years ago, I said, I was dismissed as just a housewife. Today, I'm the CEO who will demonstrate the true cost of underestimation. David Chin stood frozen. He knew. He had always known something was coming. The documents I presented weren't just a critique. They were a complete autopsy of Roberts Global's corporate structure. Our AI had been working for months. Every communication, every strategic move, analyzed, dissected, exposed. Michael's world was collapsing in real time. The International Banking Consortium was watching. Venture capitalists were taking notes. The tech industry was witnessing a public execution. This isn't just about a failed merger, I explained. This is about a fundamental misunderstanding of innovation, strategy, and professional respect. My children would be watching. Another lesson in strategic transformation. Michael tried to speak, but words failed him. The presentation continued. Each slide a nail in the coffin of his professional reputation. Technological gaps. Financial vulnerabilities. Strategic blind spots. No industry conference had ever seen anything like this. When I finished, the room was silent. David Chin approached me afterward. Not as an enemy. As someone who understood. You planned this, he said. Not a question. For a very long time, I responded. Michael stood in the background. Defeated. Broken. The reunion felt like a distant memory. Those 6 words, she's just a housewife, had created a tsunami of professional destruction. As I left the stage, I received a message from Elena. Our stock had jumped 12% in the last hour. Revenge was never about destruction. It was about transformation. And I had just transformed everything. The world moves differently after you've dismantled someone's entire professional existence. My office felt different in the weeks following the Tech Innovation Summit. Not larger. Not emptier. It's transformed. Media coverage was relentless. Tech Titan's stunning takedown, one headline read. The CEO who redefined corporate revenge, proclaimed another. But they understood nothing. This was never about revenge. Not truly. Elena sat across from me, a rare moment of quiet reflection. What now? She asked. The question hung in the air, pregnant with possibilities. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. Mom, Time magazine wants to do a feature on you. She included a laughing emoji. Our family understood strategy was an art form. Michael Roberts had disappeared from public view. His firm was being systematically dismantled by shareholders and venture capitalists who once celebrated his every move. The ecosystem we'd carefully constructed was now consuming itself. It was never personal, I told Elena. It was about challenging a system that reduces women to categories. Housewife, mother, secondary participant. The reunion felt like a distant memory. Those 6 words, she's just a housewife, had been the spark. But the fire was something much larger. Quantum Horizon's stock continued to climb. Not through aggressive tactics. Through pure strategic innovation. David Chin had reached out. Not as an adversary, but as someone who recognized a fundamental shift in corporate dynamics. He was considering joining our team. My children understood something profound. Success isn't about loud declarations. It's about strategic patience. About understanding systems deeper than anyone else. The phone rang. My ex-husband. Quite a show you put on, he said. No judgment. No anger. Just recognition. Someone had to, I responded. The corporate world was changing. And we were leading that change. Interviews requested. Speaking engagements lined up. But those were secondary. The real work continued in our labs. In our strategic planning rooms. My daughter was developing her first AI model. Watching her, I saw a reflection of my own journey. Not just inheritance. Evolution. They'll write about this, Elena said. A statement. Not a question. Corporate histories are written by those who understand that power is never given. It's constructed. Carefully. Strategically. The media wanted a narrative of revenge. Of a woman scorned. They missed the entire point. This was about dismantling systems that limit potential. About demonstrating that innovation knows no gender. No predetermined category. My phone showed messages from women across industries. Not just congratulations, but recognition. Understanding. You gave us a blueprint, one message read. Another. This is what breaking glass ceilings looks like. Michael Roberts had become a cautionary tale. Not because of what we did, but because of what he represented. The reunion felt like a lifetime ago. Those dismissive words had awakened something far larger than personal retribution. A movement. Elena was preparing our next strategic initiative. Something that would make the Roberts Global takedown look like a preliminary exercise. My children watched. Bernie. Understanding that strategy is a language. That intelligence has no gender. The corporate world would never be the same. And we were just getting started. A text from my daughter. Ready for the next challenge, Mom? I looked at Elena. She understood immediately. Always, I responded. The game continues. 5 years had passed since the Tech Innovation Summit. The world looked different. Not just because of what I had done, but because of what we had started. Quantum Horizon had become more than a company. It was a movement. A reimagining of corporate potential. My daughter stood beside me during the annual innovation conference. No longer a child watching. Now a partner. Her first AI model had just revolutionized predictive healthcare analytics. Full circle, she whispered. The reunion felt like a distant memory. Those 6 words, she's just a housewife, had transformed into a global conversation about potential. About limitations. About breaking through. Michael Roberts? A footnote in corporate history. Our foundation now funded technological education for women across continents. Not charity. Strategic investment in human potential. Elena had become more than a CEO. She was the architect of our broader vision. Each initiative a carefully constructed intervention in systems that had long marginalized potential. The phone rang. David Chen. Now not just an ally but a key strategic partner. The new education initiative, he said. It's changing everything. And it was. We weren't just building a company. We were reconstructing opportunity. My ex-husband called. Proud. Not of my revenge. But of the systemic change we'd catalyzed. You did more than win, he said. You redesigned the game. My children understood something profound. Success isn't about individual triumph. It's about creating pathways for others. The media had long moved past the narrative of revenge. Now they spoke of transformation. Of systemic change. The woman who rewrote corporate rules. One headline read. But we knew the truth. This was never about rules. It was about potential. Our AI models were now predictive engines of social change. Not just identifying market trends, but understanding human potential before it was recognized. The foundation we'd built was our real legacy. Technology scholarships. Mentorship programs. Strategic interventions in educational systems. We're not just changing industries, I told my daughter. We're changing how potential is recognized. He understood. Completely. Michael Roberts had become a case study. Not of defeat, but of what happens when potential is systematically underestimated. Our next project would transform educational technology. Identifying potential in students long before traditional systems could recognize it. Elena entered with our latest strategic proposal. Not a document. A blueprint for human potential. The reunion felt like a lifetime ago. Those 6 dismissive words had become a global conversation about capability. About recognition. Ready? My daughter asked. I looked at the team. At Elena. At the room full of brilliant minds we'd assembled. Always, I responded. The world was still full of systems waiting to be redesigned. Of potential waiting to be unleashed. And we were just getting started. A text from a scholarship recipient. A young woman who developed a breakthrough in renewable energy technology. Thank you, the message read. For showing us what's possible. This was never about revenge. This was about transformation. And transformation is a continuous journey.